Alright, everybody, welcome back to yet again another 2022-2023 season preview today, and we're moving on to yet again another team. We're looking at the Vancouver Canucks now. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer: these videos are going to be starting to release around 3 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, because obviously now, at time of recording this video, tomorrow is my first day of school. So fun. Anyways, here we're going to look at last season for the Vancouver Canucks. They went 40, 30, and 12 with 92 points. They had 249 goals scored and 236 goals against, and they missed the playoffs. The leading scorer was JT Miller, who had an amazing season with the Canucks, had 32 goals, 67 assists for 99 points. And then their one goalie was Thatcher Demko with a 33, 22, and 7 record with a 2.72 goals against average. Obviously, that season could have turned out worse than others, especially if they kept Jim Benning and Travis Green in the fold. But thankfully, the Vancouver Canucks finally fired the two, and now they have brand new management under Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin, and Bruce Boudreau. So a very good, very solid team of staff right now from this team. And overall, they really did make a big push to the playoffs. And I honestly thought that, maybe if this team keeps pushing harder and harder, maybe they had a chance at making it. Unfortunately, they couldn't, but it just wasn't in the cards for them in that competitive, it was a weak division, but just the wild cards and the games weren't on their side overall. So unfortunately, they missed, but they fought to the very end. Now, they did have a pretty eventful offseason, nothing really too big, in all honesty, but some solid additions, but some departures as well. Yaroslav Halak, Brad Hunt, Juho Lammikko, and Matthew Highmore leave this team over the offseason. So not that big departures. Halak didn't look all too good for Vancouver. Most of those guys were def. Lammikko looked solid, but unfortunately, he didn't stay with the team. But really, no big departures, no really eye-openers to the casual or even to some of the hardcore fans out there. You look at your acquisitions, though, there is some good ones. Andrei Kuzmenko obviously came from Russia in the KHL. Ilya Mikheyev, Curtis Lazar, Dakota Joshua, and Colin Delia. So you got some players here to add to the depth, some third line, fourth line acquisitions, and some overall just depth overall. So not really bad for Vancouver, a good top 6 addition in Mikheyev. And we'll obviously see Kuzmenko likely play top 6 minutes as well. So some pretty good acquisitions, pretty eventful offseason, but it wasn't a huge offseason. It wasn't good. Well, it wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. It was a decent offseason there for Vancouver. You look at their projected lineup for your top 6. You have Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, and Brock Besser. Then you have Connor Garland, Bo Horvat, and Andrei Kuzmenko. That is your overall top 6. Obviously, seeing Kuzmenko play on that second line center, he wanted to get top 6 minutes on the NHL team. That is what he was looking for. That's what the Canucks promised him, and that is why he's with the Canucks altogether. So this is really the year for Andrei Kuzmenko to really prove himself, and hopefully he can be a very solid player with the Vancouver Canucks in the NHL. But obviously, a pretty powerful top 6 there: Pettersson, Miller, and Besser. Very good first line there. Your second line is also very solid, of Horvat and Garland, obviously. So very solid top 6 there. Hopefully Garland can play better than he did his past year with Vancouver. You look at their bottom 6, you have Vasily Podkolzin, Jason Dickinson, Ilya Mikheyev. Then you have Pearson, Lazar, and Hoglander. Then for some depth players, you have Deidre Giuseppe, Dakota Joshua, and William Lockwood. So you have some solid players added to that roster there. Lazar, obviously. So you have some good additions down there. Podkolzin, obviously, trying to become that underrated left winger, and then you obviously have Hoglander. He probably won't play fourth line. That right wing side for Vancouver could be really complicated because you have a lot of players there who want NHL time. So we'll see what happens there, obviously. But overall, pretty solid bottom 6. You got some good players down there. So let's see. We'll hopefully see if that does pretty well. I can't imagine it wouldn't. You look at their defense there. You have Hughes and Dermott in your first pairing. Then you have OEL and Sean on your second pairing. Then you have Burrows and Myers as your third pairing. Then for some extra D-man, you have Jack Rathbone and Tucker Pullman. We'll obviously see Rathbone get some NHL time in there, obviously, without a question. So yeah, overall, Rathbone, pretty solid extra defender. Should probably, honestly, maybe get that third pairing over Burrows, but we'll see. But overall, interestingly solid defense, if we're being honest. I mean, there is some holes here. That OEL contract is bad as per usual, but we expected that to be bad, obviously. So not terrible there for the Canucks, obviously. And then they've obviously been trying to move out Tyler Myers for a long time now. I would imagine maybe they can get him out of Vancouver before the time is done, but We'll see. Obviously, there for your goaltending tandem, you obviously have Halak out of there, so you don't really have a trusted backup. So really, your tandem is Thatcher Demko and Spencer Martin. Then you have Colin Delia as an extra goaltender there. Then you obviously have, we can't forget him, Mikey DiPietro, but he wants to be traded. So the Canucks obviously have like a ton of goalie options down there and what they can do. We'll see what they do, honestly. But right now, I think DiPietro may get dealt for probably like a second-round pick at most, a third-round pick most likely. We could see a trade like that happen before the regular season starts off for teams who need goaltenders. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there with DiPietro, but overall, I like that tandem. Demko, Martin has not really gotten an NHL shot yet. Hopefully with this, he will be able to do so. So now moving on to your biggest questions here. Will the Canucks keep the same energy that they had last season? Obviously, with that team, and they fired everyone. They had Bruce Boudreau come in and pretty much a whole new management, more or less. And they played really well. They reacted really well. They won a couple of games in a row. They really made a push towards the playoffs. And this team looked good. It was probably the most entertaining Vancouver team I've watched. And I think they can. I think they absolutely can keep that same energy. It might be a little bit more difficult, but I think they definitely can. And I think this team will definitely make a much bigger push to the playoffs, especially now since they have a whole season on their side, hopefully. The other question I have is, how will Kuzmenko do? Now, we're going to talk about Kuzmenko a couple times here because he is that big Russian forward from the KHL. Obviously, he played amongst men, so he's played in that type of environment. So hopefully, moving over to the NHL, he'll be able to do pretty well, probably playing second line to start off the season. So we'll see how Kuzmenko does, obviously, there. But I would imagine he probably is a 50, 55-point scorer right off the bat there. So you look at your point-o-meter according to the Hockey News' fantasy guide there. Slowly moving along in all the teams here. You have Elias Pettersson leading the way with exactly 80 points. Then you have JT Miller in second with 78. That kind of is accurate, although Miller had a really big breakout season. I think he may have a little bit of a setback, but I don't think it'll be a significant setback. Probably maybe at most 25 or 20 points. But I still think he's a solid 80, 85-point scorer. Not 78, though. You have Quinn Hughes at 64, then you have Garland at 62, and then you have Kuzmenko at 54. So obviously there, Kuzmenko getting that 55-point season there. Should be very solid for the Canucks, obviously. And speaking of which, he's our sleeper or your bust, as per usual. The track record of KHL imports is rather spotty, but Andrei Kuzmenko has a chance to buck the trend after leading St. Petersburg in scoring. He'll play the top six and see time on a power play that ranked in the NHL's top 5 at one point in 2021, 2022. So obviously there, Kuzmenko will definitely get some time. Sorry about that. I actually completely forgot about reading off of this yearbook again. But obviously, Kuzmenko, we talked about him a ton, but he should be obviously, again, a very solid forward there for the Vancouver Canucks. Now moving on to the brass tacks, or the brass, or whatever you want to call it, in the Hockey News' yearbook. Their cup odds are actually 41-1, so that is significant there. Boudreau enters the option year of his 2-year deal with Mike Yeo and Trent Cole as his new assistants. Yeo has a history with Alvin, and he might get the bench if Boudreau stumbles out of the gate or isn't retained. Associate coach Brad Shaw left to join John Tortorella in Philadelphia. So we'll obviously see there how the coaching does with Vancouver. Looked very good last year, so I can't imagine it wouldn't be all too bad this coming season. So now we look at the question, do they make the playoffs? In 2021, I said yes, I was wrong. In 2022, I said maybe, so I was right and wrong. This year, again, I'm going to say maybe. Although the division is weak, it is on the rise. I think Vancouver has the star power to be a good team this year. I think they might be, they're not going to be the same. They definitely will be better than they were in the first half of the season, probably. But I think they still can be a solid team. Whether they make the playoffs or not might be a stretch. But we'll see what Vancouver does. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. For all your support as of late, I really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe down below if you're new. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.